Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! My first husband was not a very nice man. For 6 years I was belittled and basically a baby factory for him. He was a fantastic father but a horrible husband. After he finally got his heirs, I was then treated even worse until I finally woke up and decided to leave him. This revenge story is not about him. I just had to set the scene. I moved out of the house taking just my clothes, the car, 4K value no more, and the computer. I had nothing, stayed at a girlfriend for a couple weeks before I was able to line up a crabby townhouse with roommates. I had no furniture, and my bed was a cat pee smelling free couch I was able to score. I wound up having 3 to 4 jobs, with one of them being full-time, and once a week I would not even be able to sleep a night between jobs, meaning having to stay up for almost 48 hours. Now fast forward 1 year, my divorce was finalized and I had fulfilled my year's lease for the townhouse. By this time, from all my hard work, I had furnished the home, my bedroom and my kids' room when they would be with me for visitation. The scumbag landlord was a nice-ish landlord during the time of my tenancy, and I was a good tenant, never being late with my rent. Although I had roommates, I was a sole name on a lease. The landlord would show up often with some guys that he had to work on something like plumbing tests or whatever excuse he could come up with, just so he could be all creepy and hang around trying to converse with me with mild inappropriate undertones that made me quite uneasy at times. Finally, the lease was fulfilled and I was now on to a month-to-month contract, to which, at that time, I was ready to move out of this crabby townhouse and found a great house in the mountains nearby, and I was simply thrilled now that I had got my feet on the ground and can afford a bit better than slum living. My lease stated that I had to give 1 month's notice in order to move out. Unfortunately, I was able to get the house I was to move into for the next month, only 3 weeks away. I sent an email to the landlord stating that I intend on moving out at the end of this month, in 3 weeks, and he can try to find another tenant. But I did state that if he didn't find a tenant, I would still fulfill my legal obligation and pay next month's rent. Within 1 week, 2 weeks before I moved out, he emailed back and stated that he was generous of my offer, but he was able to find a new tenant for the beginning of the next month and I will be off the hook. He even tipped his hand by stating that he already collected the deposit from them. Now something happened within a couple days after that, which was no fault of my own, nor my roommates. The townhouse came with its own appliances, fridge, oven and so on, including a clothes washer and dryer on the main level. My roommate had put a load of laundry in and went to the living room to have a nap. He woke to find that the washer had malfunctioned with a sensory switch, which never stopped the water fill stage. There was an inch of water in the kitchen and living room. He splashed through the water to turn off the washer and called me to come and help deal with this. I was just getting off of work and I whipped home to assess the damage. It was bad. There was standing water on top of the living room carpet and a good inch of water in the whole kitchen. I called the landlord and told him the issue, and by the time he showed up, I had already got most of the standing water out with the help of my roommate and friends that showed up with shop vacs. The landlord didn't seem too upset, which was surprising for me, and an appliance repairman had come to look at the washer. The repairman even said, "Yep, here is a culprit," and showed him the dial would stick on a fill stage and wouldn't click over to the agitated stage. After replacing the dial and lubricating the whole deal, he left. The next week was chaos as I was busy trying to pack, and the landlord had insurance guys in, assessing, and workers taking out the carpets and cutting 2 feet worth of the lower drywall of the whole main level. The day of the move, though, I was still supposed to be there for a couple more days. The landlord had let himself in as movers were moving out my stuff, with a camera going around taking pictures of everything. I honestly thought that it was for his insurance claims and so on. I actually felt bad for the landlord. I'm too nice, and told him that I would not ask for any of my deposit back. And he responded in front of the loading crew and my roommate, "Thank you, that's very generous of you." We parted ways and I thought that was that. I was wrong. 2 weeks into my new home, the landlord showed up on my doorstep with a summons to appear in arbitration because he was suing me. What? On what grounds? He stated that it's all in his paperwork and handed me a manila envelope with 18 pages of everything he was charging me with, all including photos. Now I know why he was going around taking pictures. Nickel and diming me on everything from a bent Venetian blind that was like that when I had moved in, and some scuffs on walls and so on. But then he also wanted me to pay his insurance deductible and that following month's rent. He claimed that the tenants that he had lined up backed out at the last minute, claiming that they didn't think the place wouldn't be ready in time with a new drywall and paint and so on. So he still wanted me to pay that month's rent. Really? Screw this, I knew I was more than generous of giving him my whole deposit, and then for him to come back and sue me for thousands, he was not only claiming the damages caused by the flood, but improvements he needed to do that should never be or have been my responsibility in the first place. Even cracks in the living room wall that was from the building settling. How should I be responsible for that? Even new lighting, faucets, and so on. All mainly on the accusation that I was negligent. I wasn't going to have that. I know it was a slummy townhouse complex and most of his tenants were on welfare, and maybe he could get away doing this with others. But not me. No way. I had just got out of a marriage that made me feel insignificant and had horrible self-esteem. But now I had my dignity and felt strong for the first time in a long time. No way was I going to let any more crap happen to me without my doing something about it. I had 10 days before the date of my arbitration meeting. I immediately got to work, first getting assigned a position from the very repairman that had shown that day, stating that the appliance was quite in need of maintenance work, and the last time he had done any maintenance for him was almost 5 years before. From thoroughly reviewing my rental contract and local laws, a landlord is obligated to have all appliances maintained/services every year. I had also talked to some of the other tenants and had heard that this wasn't the first time the landlord had sued tenants after the fact. I hunted them down and got sworn statements from them also. Unfortunately for them, they didn't know what to do and mostly didn't show up at arbitration, hence the landlord winning by default. No way, I was not going to let him do this to me. I then drew up a rebuttal to each and every claim he had, including photos from the year plus that I had lived there. Printed out all my email correspondence and even convinced my ex-roommates and one of the movers that heard my interaction with the landlord about him, stating how generous it was of me letting him keep my whole deposit, which was a significant amount, to come. Day of arbitration. I dressed up in my power suit and with my ex-roommate and worker in tow, showed up at the meeting. Now, in Canada, arbitration is not held in a courtroom per se, but it's still held at the courthouse in a conference room with a judge. We had 1 hour with this judge. Since the landlord was a plaintiff, he got to go first with his case. He spent over 40 minutes going over everything, and I sat quietly until he finished. Once he finished, I then hauled out the rebuttal in multiple copies, handed to the judge, to the landlord, and to anyone else that wished to have one, and I quickly went over each point. The landlord was irate and interrupted almost every second sentence I spoke. I would pause the moment he would start talking and say sweetly, "I was quiet and polite during your time to present your case. I hope you grant me the same respect." The landlord started to get red in the face, especially when I got to the deposition of the maintenance worker for the appliance. I included with the Tenancy/Landlord Act sections pertaining to appliance maintenance and stated that this was the only record of the maintenance that had occurred. And unless he can come up with more recent records from perhaps another company, it was over 5 years since anything had been looked at. With my defense, I had also then countered that I would like my deposit back and my day's pay from work since I had to take the day off to go to this meeting. The judge then made his statement, and I will always remember this for the rest of my life. He stated that first, he was very impressed by my presentation, and that I obviously have a good handle on things and can tell that my nature is of kindness and respect, especially with photos of how I had the townhouse furnished and clean and pride in whatever home I would live in. Bottom line, not only did I win my case, I wound up having the landlord owing me over 80% of my deposit back, including interest. The landlord's face was priceless. The judge then proceeded to tell the landlord that they will be reviewing again all his previous filings, and if there was enough evidence of harassment, it would be reported to the Board of Landlords and Tenants. I don't really know if anything came out of that. Now I walked out that day feeling on top of the world, completely justified, and he got a taste of his own medicine. But it didn't stop there. Oh no, knowing that this guy has a history of suing tenants, I printed up my final results and judge's signature and gave a copy to each and every tenant in that complex. I wanted to warn everyone about his practices and to keep notes, photos and so on so that he couldn't do that to them. But I didn't stop there. He still now owed me money, and I asked repeatedly for the payment. He never responded. He had until a certain date to pay me back my deposit, and on that day I had gone to his house. I looked up his residence under public records as he's a landlord and had to file under a certain address, and I knocked on a door. He didn't answer, though I knew he was home. I rang the bell a few more times and knocked loudly. He then turned his house alarm on, which at first startled me, but quickly turned to humor, seeing how much of a wuss this bully turned out to be. I then yelled out loud enough that I am not going anywhere. He yelled out, "Get off my property, or I will call the police." Okay, no problem. I got off the property but camped out on a front sidewalk. I had a fold-up chair, a cooler with water and sodas, a few sandwiches, and all my paperwork with me. I was set to stay there forever. I then would tell anyone that would walk by, already there were some people there from the house alarm fiasco, about how I was a tenant and wrongfully sued me and that I have a claim against him and he now owes me money. I let anyone look at the paperwork just to back up my claim. The police did show up. They first went to talk to the landlord and he was claiming that I was harassing him, slandering him, and I wouldn't leave his property. I was on public property, the sidewalk, and it isn't slander if it's true, of which I had all my court-signed paperwork to back me up. I wasn't disturbing the peace, I was simply and quietly seated outside his home and just talking to neighbors about his actions. He was out yelling that I needed to leave, and I quietly stated that I would be happy to leave once I'm paid that he was legally obligated to do by that date. I was not going to leave before I got money in my hand, and I was more than willing to stay there until anyone that would listen to me why I was camped out. The police stated that I wasn't doing anything wrong, that it's public property, and I wasn't disturbing the peace, and it isn't slander if it's true. Finally, after an hour of the landlord yelling on his front lawn at the policeman, and at me of course, that his wife come out with money, she handed the money to the police, of which in return handed the money to me, and signed off documenting the final payment was complete. I sweetly smiled, thanked the police deeply, and I went home. I know it's been a while since I posted here, some things came up with my family, everything is fine now, but this story here just happened about 3 days ago with me, my godson, newborn, and my close best friend. We could be sisters. Let's set the scene. Paris, 1834. Nah, I'm kidding. Target, kinda chilly outside, and somehow it's a bit cloudy. So I thought we were gonna get cold rain, and during the time my BFF came to visit, I was in the middle of getting my god baby together to take him home. His poor mom had to work that whole weekend, so I told my BFF to come with me. On our way, my god baby mom asked if we could pick up some things for him and her from Target. Sure, why not? We see Target before we get to her house anyway. Plus, I needed to get some stuff afterwards. So why not get it all while we're there, right? Plus, one of my favorite cousins works there. So I could see her and finally let her see my god baby from a distance. Might want to remember this for later on. So my friend cash apped me and off we go to Target. So we get to Target and I have my god baby in his little carrier. Unfortunately, my friend bought the one that's too big for the front of the shopping cart. So I had to put it directly inside a cart. Since CJ is only 1 month, he's too young for a mask, so I cover the carrier in a thick enough blanket. I asked my BFF to get another cart for the shopping and now we are set. Now to describe what we're wearing, everyone knows Target's uniform is a basic red shirt with nothing on it, and khakis pants. BFF wore a navy blue top with black flare pants and flats. I wore a V-neck burgundy top with flare sleeves and strings to tie in a bow in the front with black flare jeans with some sneakers. So we're shopping, checking off things on her list and mine, then I'm looking over to the list on the side of the walk-in area so I wouldn't be in anyone's way, and feeding CJ at the same time through the blanket. My little nugget got fussy, and I noticed I forgot something for him back a few aisles. So I asked my BFF to put on a glove, hold his bottle, and finish feeding him while I go get the item. Yeah, she's my BFF, but he's my god baby, and with this pandemic still going around, I don't trust germs. I go to the aisle looking hard because my glasses tend to slide and fall off a lot. Keep this in mind too. And then I hear that classic sound that irritates everyone so bad. It makes me want to bang their head on the floor. That classic Karen I turned my head and there she was. Pixie haircut, sunglasses on top of her head with no damn sun inside, tight tank top, short shorts, knowing damn well it's chilly outside and flip-flops. I'm thinking to myself, is this a Karen uniform or something? But I digress. So I move out the way thinking I'm in her way and continue looking for my item and she sighs. And I can feel her staring burn through my skin but I wasn't lit up. Then she says, "It's hard finding good help these days. Everyone wants to be lazy." I roll my eyes and put my head down saying, "Not today, please, just not today." I find my item and leave out the aisle. And now she's mad. Did I care? Nope. And I think she could sense that. Then she starts. Y'all know how this goes. "So you're not gonna help me?" Nope. Karen with a fake gasp. "And why not?" Okay, I'm gonna try to say this in a nice way because I see you one of those. "Ma'am, I don't work here. I give you no indication that I work here, and no, I'm not on a break. And no, it's not my day off. I generally do not work here. Now I'm going to leave and put this in my shopping cart so I can pay and leave the store." Karen stops me as I'm backing up. "Don't you dare walk away from me. I know you're lying. I've seen you here before working. You can't fool me. You just don't want to work. You'll be fired when I'm done with you. I am getting the manager." I look her up and down and say, "Yeah, you do that." I go back to the carts and my BFF asks me what was taking so long. I tell her everything from A to Z and she chuckles. I see she's trying to burp CJ, so I tell her to let me try. Every time since this little nugget came out the womb, he's been stubborn to do everything, including the burping. Shake my head. I place the towelette to my shoulder and him and give it a try. I am 2 minutes in and he burps. And when I lay him down, the baby boy is asleep. Good shot. So now we can leave. But then I hear screaming and screeching. My eyes widened and my head slowly turned to the right when I saw Karen coming down the wall area with the manager. BFF said, "Is that her?" "Yes, Witch, that's her." Me and my friend use those terms with each other a lot, so please don't take offense to me or her calling each other that. We've been friends for almost 20 years. So Karen gets to us, still screaming and still screeching. "This is her. She should be fired for not helping a customer and lying about not working here. I'm a loyal customer. I have rights." "Sir, can you please tell her to keep it down?" I asked the manager. "I just put my son to sleep. Second, I've already told the wicked witch of the Northeast that's I don't work here. What part of my clothes say I work here? And even if I did, that was on my day off, customers are not entitled to get help from them if they are not working. But as I have told her, I don't work here." The manager says, "Ma'am, she really does not work here. All of this could have been avoided. Do you want me to help you?" "Yes, I want you to fire her. I know you're covering for her. I've seen her plenty of times working. If something doesn't happen right now, I am calling corporate." Then from all the hollering, my god baby starts crying. So I picked him up trying to calm him down. Now I am mad. I don't like when people disturb my son, so I snapped. Which I told your whoopsie looking butt to keep the noise down because I just put my son to sleep. Now look, I got a hollering Oswald and a crying baby. Shut up and move on to somewhere. Like, damn, how hard is it for you to comprehend that I don't work here? What? You're that embarrassed at the fact that you're wrong that you gotta keep up this stupid image just so you can try to be right? Get away from us so I can calm my son down. I guess all of that set her off and she paid absolutely no attention to the fact that I still had my god baby in my arms because she launched at me with her arm in the air, and when it came down it looked like she hit me because I moved my face quick enough for her not to. By that time my glasses slipped off and fell on the floor and broke. Yep, now I am really pissed. Those were the only glasses I had too, and I had just tried to make an eye doc appointment the week prior. They are full this month and next month and don't have doc appointment books yet. I'm beyond pissed. I am pissed to the highest level. Then the ultimate happened. My cousin. So my cousin comes around the corner being so nosy, we can't help it, and when she noticed it was me, now she wants to know what is going on. The manager wanted to know what this had to do with her, and when she said she was my big cousin, both he and Karen looked at us and saw we looked so much alike. It was no wonder Karen had us mixed up. We are the kids of two sisters. My mama is the third oldest daughter and her mama is a baby girl. So the manager tells my cousin to calm me down because he sees I'm about ready to fight, while he goes to call the police. He didn't ask me if I wanted the police called, he just said he was going to call the police. Oh, that set Karen all the way off. She's kicking and screaming while he's pulling her to his office. My cousin calms me down while I'm gently bouncing to put my god baby back to sleep. The police came, and I gave them my statement. My BFF gave hers, as well as my cousin because even though she didn't see it, she heard it and she's a family member. Manager paid for the baby stuff and the police said they will get back in touch with me over Karen after he put her in handcuffs and put her in the back of a police car. So some backstory, I was an employee at a little, hit popular cafe, which we will call Cafe X, in my rapidly developing town. Unfortunately, I got laid off due to the pandemic, understandable though, it was tiny. I get along well with customers, some of which I know on a first-name basis. The incident occurred in another cafe, Cafe Y, where two of my friends work. One of them, Mitsu, is a barista, while the other, Kieran, was a manager. Cafe Y is way more popular than my cafe, so more people went there to get their coffee. I had had a couple screw-ups while I was working that day. I was really beating myself up. My manager, who was worried about me, told me to clock out early today and to relax. We all have days like this, just come back tomorrow with a smile. Honestly, I was annoyed that she didn't trust me to control myself, but she probably did the right thing. Anyways, on to the story now. I was tired and stressed out after being sent home, so I decided to go to Cafe Y in order to grab something and head home. However, I had forgotten Kieran and Mitsu were working that day, which was a pleasant surprise. It was a slow period of the day and the two were talking together. The moment I walked in, Mitsu joked about how rats in the store are a safety violation. She calls me a rat, it's a long story. I flipped her off, a show of affection, and asked Kieran for some tea, which he laughed and said sure. Mitsu and I sat down and talked while Kieran boiled the water for my favorite blend, green tea with mint. A lady walks in and Mitsu gets up to go take her order. As I'm waiting, I noticed that the sugar at the sugar/cream section was low. Wanting to help out my friends, I take the sugar out from the cabinet below, refill it, walk back to my seat and start playing games on my phone. My first mistake. Obviously, the lady saw me and started ranting. The conversation went a little something like this. The entitled woman scoffs and says, "Wow, how professional of your coworker there. Taking out his phone in the middle of his shift? People like him don't deserve to work." Mitsu looks around confused. "Ma'am, I'm the only one here. Can I get you anything else?" She gives her a look like she's completely stupid. "Are you making fun of me? I can clearly see your coworker not working." She points at me. I haven't looked up, but I've been paying attention to the conversation. So I speak up. "Ma'am, I don't work here." My second mistake. The entitled woman turns to me and walks over to my table. "Shut your mouth, you filthy liar. I saw you restock the sugar and you shouldn't lie to your customers like that. Funny thing about me, when I'm tired and off the clock, I don't take crap from anyone." My general response is either sarcastic or condescendingly witty. Bad habit, I know. I look up at her, locking eyes. "Lady, I want you to take a look at the logo on her shirt and tell me if it matches up with the logo on my shirt." She blinks for a minute, looking at my shirt, then she snaps at me. "Don't you talk to me like that, you delinquent. You work here. Now I demand you get behind the counter and help make my order." So I pull my phone in my pocket, letting out a sigh. "I don't work here. I am not allowed to go behind the counter." I look at Mitsu, who nods in confirmation. "Ma'am, he doesn't work here." She wheels around, pointing directly at Mitsu's face. "Don't you cover up for him, you little witch. I saw you talking just a second ago. You're just trying to bail your friend out." Her first mistake. I immediately get up and walk up to her. "Lady, I think you need to apologize to my friend." I am very protective of my friends, by the way, especially people like Mitsu. She can't stand confrontation like this and often will get anxiety from this kind of situation. The entitled woman wheels around to me, now shoving her finger in my face.
Is that a threat? Are you threatening a customer? This is unacceptable. I'll have your job.
At this point, Kieran comes out and places my tea on a counter. I don't know if he's been listening to the conversation or not, he just calls my order number. Immediately, the woman grabs the tea and takes a sip, assuming it's hers. Before I can tell her, she spits it all over me.
What is this? That's not my order.
She pointed at Mitsu.
You're incompetent. I want to speak to a manager about you and your jerk of a friend.
Then she throws it away, still screeching. Her second mistake. It's one thing to get mad over my mistakes. It's another to accuse me of your own. Before I can even get a word out, Kieran stops me. I'm the manager here. What seems to be the problem? The entitled woman gets a triumphant smirk on her face.
The rude employee here refused to take my order, and when I asked politely, he cussed me out and hit me. Then your other employee defended him while also calling me a witch.
She lifted her sleeve, revealing a bruise on her upper arm. Obviously from a previous injury or something, because I had not touched her at all. Kieran looked at me with concern. Did you do this? I can't believe you. My mouth dropped. Kieran, dude, you know I wouldn't. But he lifted his hand, stopping me. I need you to come with me. We need to discuss your status as an employee. Mitsu, don't leave either. Make her order, then come back too. He turns to look at the entitled woman. I'm sorry, but after your order is made, could I ask you to wait so I can compensate you for your awful visit? The entitled woman has the smuggest look on her face.
Of course. I am happy management here is at least competent.
Kieran leads me back into the manager's office. He closes the door, then turns to me with a look of exasperation. Alright, what happened? Immediately I realized he was on my side and he was using his legendary theater skills to calm the lady down. I explain the situation and he gets super pissed. Not only has this lady berated the customer but also his employee, which just so happens to be his girlfriend. He begins to walk out but I stop him. Call the cops. He looks at me, a questioning look on his face. I tell him my plan and immediately walk out of the room with his approval. I walk back out and see Mitsu shaken, either out of anger or anxiety, I don't know, while the lady is berating her. I walk to her and whisper something. She nods and walks back to the office. The entitled woman eyes me with triumph, and I glare at her. I check the screen to confirm something. Yep, I've got my evidence. I sit and wait behind the counter. The entitled woman makes a couple of remarks, berating me and trying to antagonize me, but I ignore her. Eventually, the police arrive. Kieran walks out with Mitsu behind him. The entitled woman's eyes widened in excitement as she realizes that her complaint is getting me in even more trouble than she originally anticipated. Kieran walks over to the officers, asks him to come with him back to the manager room, and tells the rest of us to wait in the front. Mitsu and I sit on the opposite side of the store to the lady. I checked with Mitsu. She's fine, just a bit angry now, and the entitled woman can barely contain her excitement of seeing how she got 2 delinquents fired but 1 arrested. A while passes and the cops come out with Kieran. They ask for our side of the events. The entitled woman begins first, painting herself as a victim while accusing me of verbally harassing her and assault, even going as far as to claim that I touched her inappropriately. The cops come and ask our side of the story. Of course, we tell it together because we're clearly on the same side. The cops think for a minute, then turn around. Cop 1 says, "Ma'am, I am placing you under arrest." She stands up flabbergasted.
I'm sorry, what?
She points at me.
He's the one who attacked me. Look at this bruise.
She rolls up her sleeve again, exposing the bruise. The second officer with an exasperated look on her face. "Ma'am, you do realize there are security cameras in this building, right?" Her face goes white as she realizes her mistake. Kieran, Mitsu, and I share a triumphant smile. We all knew about the cameras, of course. They clearly recorded her yelling at us, the lack of me hitting her, and her taking my drink, as well as spitting on me. Kieran had showed them the footage when he called the cops back at my request. When she protested that she never assaulted me, I told her it's assault when you intentionally spit a drink on someone. She protested saying she thought it was her coffee. Kieran then shows the officer that the lady never finished her order, as Mitsu never entered. The cops arrested her and asked if I wanted to press charges. After the last time, a lot of people told me I should have pressed charges, so I did that. She was charged with
verbal harassment, assault, theft, and a couple things like disturbing the peace. She was escorted out of the property, screeching at us. We're awaiting the hearing, but I won't be posting about it. She likely won't make a scene, considering she seemed to recognize it was a losing battle. I texted my manager later, and she asked me for a description of the lady. Then she told me that she would make sure that she never sets foot in my workplace either. That could end up messy for the restaurant. She asked me that next time to act a bit more professionally, as that does reflect on a restaurant. However, she did agree that I did the right thing and asked if I got my tea. I said yes, and she asked how was it, and I said it was great. It's my personal favorite. Green tea with mint and a pinch of justice. There was this little restaurant I went to. It's a nice little pub with really cheap food and really friendly staff. They also have a shuffleboard table, and that's where the story begins. I was on my lunch break from my actual job. I'm a manager, so I usually have to wear nice polos or button-up dress shirts. Anyway, I'm eating my lunch while playing shuffleboard with myself. The bar is being overrun by a bunch of people, and the poor bartender was all on her own. There weren't any employees helping with the tables out in the dining room. I personally know the bartender, so I came up and asked if she needed any orders taken to any tables. She smiled at me and pointed to the plates that were on a serving tray. Those go to the table in the corner. She said that she continued making drinks. I nodded and took the tray and made my way over to the table and served them. This one lady we will call Karen, she had the "I want to talk to your manager" style haircut, looks at me and scoffs. I have never seen it take this long for me to get a sandwich. Sorry for that, hon, but she's been really busy at the bar. I say, pointing to my friend. I know, and yet you just sit at the shuffleboard table and eat your burger while you let her drown. What kind of manager are you? I raised a brow before remembering how nicely I'm dressed. Since she believed I was a manager there, I replied pretty normally. Oh, I don't work here. But she cuts me off. Don't try to lie your way out of this. I've heard enough. I am calling the owner of this place right now and letting him know how much of a jerk you are. At this point, I'm trying to explain how I was just trying to help, but she had her phone out and called the guy who owned the pub. Every time I tried to explain this to her, she just flipped me off. I rolled my eyes and just walked back to the bar, telling my friend about the woman. Friend tells me, oh yeah, she's some entitled witch that comes in here every other day. She keeps complaining and trying to get everyone in trouble. She found out my boss's name and searched his number in the phone book, so if any of us try to tell her something she doesn't like, she calls the boss. He usually just tells us to let her eat for free and get her to leave. Like I said, I'm a manager, so when I heard that, I could tell that wasn't a good idea. If you give problem customers free things, they are just going to come back causing more problems, expecting it to give them more free things. I go back to playing on a shuffleboard and eating my burger, and I see Karen storming up to me. I told him you were sitting here playing shuffleboard instead of helping your employee. He's on his way up here to fire you. That's gonna be really hard for him to do since I don't work here, you stupid witch. She got red in the face and she reached over and she slapped me. Now screaming, how dare you say that to me? I will screw up your whole life, you waste of filth. Now, I'm a simple man and I was raised to never hit a woman. But I'm a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo and a first-degree black belt in Hapkido. I don't need to hit her to make my point. She goes to slap me again and I catch her wrist, pulling it behind her back and kicking out both her feet to bring her to her knees. She couldn't move in this position without pain shooting up her arms and neck. Believe me, I've been locked in this position before. At this point, the whole pub turned to see the commotion and my friend came over to me. Are you okay? Let go of me! I'm going to get you arrested and I will sue you so hard you'll be lucky to be living in a cardboard box. I asked my friend if she could get me some zip ties. Once she gets me some, I fashion out some makeshift handcuffs and restrain her. At this point, the owner walks in and sees this. What happened? Your stupid manager assaulted me is what happened. I am suing him and you and your business for this. He doesn't work for me. He's a regular here lady. Carrying up bright red in the face, but she sat there and stayed quiet now. I think she realized what kind of trouble she was in. After a few moments, the police arrived and I explained the events that unfolded to both the owner and the police. My friend backed me up on all of it, despite Karen trying to deny it. After reviewing the cameras and all, the police officer asked if I wanted to press charges for assault, and I said gladly. She was sent away in a police car, and no one has seen her since. In my country, we have a tradition that when we finish elementary school, we jump into a fountain and splash around. I managed to mess that up by falling and injuring my leg. When I looked at my leg, blood was seeping through my sock. My leg hurt for days and I avoided walking and standing. Another thing you need to know is that bus drivers are not gentle with buses at all, and buses are falling apart and rattling. So riding the bus while standing is very painful. Now the story. I'm going to my friend's place in the suburbs and a driver decided to use the entire speedometer. When I entered the bus, it was empty, so I sat in a seat that isn't really for older people or people with special needs. But it's not the narrowest either. Just enough space for my legs. After 20 minutes, the bus became crowded. And at one stop, this woman entered. Americans would call her Karen, so I will call her that too. Karen was around 50 years old, and as she was looking for a seat, she noticed me. Probably because I was the youngest. The conversation went like this. You young people never give up your seats for older ones. Me? I would, but I injured my leg. Excuse me? Get up now, or I will force you. I'm not lying, my leg really hurts. It hurts even when I sit, let alone when I stand. Karen tried to pull me up, but I weighed 75 kilograms, even though I didn't look it. So she couldn't budge me. Prove it! What? Should I prove that I'm injured? Yes! Okay. I took off my shoe and sock, which was incredibly painful in front of the whole bus, but also because I pulled it off abruptly as cap came off, and it started bleeding. The whole bus fell silent, except for a woman talking on the phone. Are you enjoying watching my feet? She got off at the next stop. I don't know if out of embarrassment or because it was really her stop. I just told the unlockers not to ask me anything and put on my headphones. I got off the bus a few stops later, and walking like a zombie, reached my friend's place. My sock was even bloodier by then, but it was worth it. Edit. The foot wasn't in that bad shape, I made full recovery in 2 weeks, it was just really painful first week.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.